complex story which is used by the media and some political ruling forces in Germany for their own purpose.
Right.
For this question, why do you think that Western countries intend to divide terrorists in two groups of good and bad? I mean, the terrorists which invaded Syria are considered as as good moderate militants, but those who attacked Paris, they are considered as bad terrorists. So why do you think that this division is being applied?
Well, it's because the Western leaders are filled with hypocrisy, and they're not really concerned about an end to terrorism. They're concerned about furthering their own agenda and making sure that they can keep financial control of the world. That's what their main concern is, and because of that, they're happy to support terrorists. They funded terrorists in Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden, al-Zarqawi, they were part of terrorist groups in Afghanistan fighting the Soviet Union. They have continued to unleash an ugly campaign of terrorism in Syria. And at this point, as I've said many times, Western leaders really have to decide what's more important. Do they want an end to terrorism, or do they want to overthrow the Syrian government? Because as long as they continue their crusade against the Syrian government, as long as they prevent Turkey and Jordan from closing their borders, as long as they allow the flow of weapons into Syria to continue, terrorists and groups are only going to get stronger, and events like what happened in Paris are only going to continue to take place. It's really a choice Western leaders have to make. Do they want to end terrorism, or do they want to continue trying to overthrow the Syrian government? And it's not just the Syrian government. The U.S. government is working with the Jindullah terrorists, which are trying to overthrow the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Mujahideen Khalq, a vile group of terrorists, they're in the United States getting safe harbor. I've seen them on the streets protesting the United Nations. I've been threatened by them. So there are all kinds of terrorists all over the world who are supported by the U.S. government. Unfortunately, the U.S. media doesn't seem to consider them terrorists until they turn around and kill people in the United States.
As the leader said, for many years, the Western citizens were the guests of Muslim countries and still are, and they are not treated unjustly. But in Western countries, we see Muslims under huge oppression and surveillance. Why has this happened?
Yes, the Islamic countries are really treating the citizens in a very good way. They have all their religious and personal rights, but we see the opposite thing in the Western countries. Yes. The Muslims there don't have any rights, even the religious one. Even the women there, they can't wear hijab freely. They can't wear hijab in government offices, governmental offices. Right. So actually, I think they are fighting Islam and Muslims in all sides, not just by media or by on fight field. No, they are fighting Islam by media, as I mentioned, by supporting the terrorist groups, and even another things when they invade Islamic countries. And I think all these things are because they see the Islam as a great danger on their interests. Islam Islam doesn't accept oppressions on people. Mm-hmm. We don't have a rule that accepts oppression on Muslims or anyone else, not just Muslims.
Yes.
With the Islam always contains a rule for non-Muslims people, not just Muslim one. So we see the revolutions through the history of Islam. We see the great revolution of Imam Hussein bin Ali alayhi salam, peace be upon him, and his great revolution against oppression. That means the Islam is a live religion. Isn't a dead religion that forces people always to follow their rulers and their what have forced on them.
Yes.
So this revolutionary thing, or this history of revolution, as a Western politicians think, is a great danger of their interests, because they know the real Muslims will never allow them to have their interest in their on their lands. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, and as you know, in this letter, Ayatollah Khamenei just mentioned Israel, and he mentions Israel and compares its oppression with whatever happened in Paris and also in other terrorist attacks in other European countries. Do you think that it has a special point, or what is the thing behind that? I mean, what is the similarities between these two, kind of groups, Israel and these terrorist attacks?
Well, I think anybody who knows the history and knows about the atrocities that the Israeli government and the military commit, no, they don't need to be. I mean, obviously, there's parallels, because innocent people are harmed and their rights are taken away, etc., etc. However, I think from maybe somebody who's not as educated, from their perspective, it's going to be hard to see that parallel. I don't know if you saw, but Donald Trump made some comments about Muslims in America, whatever. Benjamin Netanyahu later makes a statement saying, "Oh, we oppose treating people differently because of their religion or their nationality," right?
Yeah.
So you have this ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? Because clearly there are people in the West Bank and Gaza who can't be citizens of Israel, so to speak, because of their Israeli policies, right? And you have this guy who makes a headline saying, "Hey, I oppose Trump and what he's saying and whatever, yada, yada, yada." So I think that they're very strategic, because how many people truly know anything about Israel? Not many, right? But how many people are going to come across that headline and remember, oh, okay, Bibi Netanyahu wasn't a fan of Trump. He can't be that bad, right? He doesn't even support keeping Muslims out of the United States. How bad could the guy be? So I think they definitely play on people's ignorance, which, I mean, for the sake of the Palestinians, it's sad, because if people were more aware, then they would see those atrocities, and I think that they would help to demand that they stop occurring.
All right. And okay, about the first letter, I have a question. I mean, you have written the first letter, and it was mainly about the Islam, and the second letter is somehow being only focused on political stuff. So, if you want to compare these two, which of them is more important, or do you think that both of them are needed? And what do you think about that generally, about the comparison between these two letters?
I think I think both the letters were important, but I think the second letter, because of the political climate, I think it was more needed. It was more necessary, because in a time where people don't know how to draw a difference between real Muslims and Daesh, you have an Islamic government that has been portrayed as evil in the Western media, coming out and saying, "Hey, what can we'll do everything we can to stamp these guys out. Anything we can do to get rid of Daesh, we're trying, we're doing, we are committed to removing them from this earth."
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that it gets people thinking, like, oh, Iran doesn't support Daesh? Really? What's going on there? Why not? Right? Because in their minds, Iran is the same. Like, they believe the same things. They hate infidels. They want to kill Christians, etc., etc. But in reality, that's not the case.
All right.
So I think it does a good job of drawing that stark difference.
Okay. And as you know, also all these Western countries are trying to, support Israel, which is somehow being the main supporter of lots of these Daesh and al-Nusra and all of these takfiri groups in the region. So how people react about that? They can, I mean, they can separate these two from each other, or, I mean, they justify that so easily. I mean, they say that, well, Israel is something else and these terrorist groups are something else. They cannot see the support of Israel for these groups, or no, there's just something else going on.
You don't even have to look at Israel's support. Look at the U.S. support. The U.S. has been arming the rebels since the crisis in Syria began. So, and by the way, this is something that goes unreported, which is why nobody cares, because no one knows. So the only people that truly know about these things are the people that seek out this type of information, that know that Saudi Arabia is this Wahhabi, takfiri, terrible, terrible country. And likewise for Israel, the only people that care about who's arming the rebels are the people that are aware